Hello and welcome to Sustainability Shorts, our rapid fire interview series ahead of Climate Week NYC. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Marissa McGowan, Chief Sustainability Officer for L'Oreal North America. Marissa, it's lovely to see you here again.
And you, Helen, thanks for having us.
Let's just kick straight off. And my first question to you is really speaking personally, how did you get involved in this side of your organisation and what's that journey been like for you?
So interestingly, I credit a school trip to the United Nations in middle school here in New York. It was the first time I got a sense of the fact that countries came together to work on cross-border challenges, and it really inspired me to think differently about big issues. I coupled that with the fact that my mother's from Hawaii, and we spent a lot of time there. Incredibly finite resources, food for 7 days on the island, so you just become aware of everything you're using, disposing, and trying to be super conscious of it without having any buzzwords that go around that. The last thing I would say is having gone to school for international relations, I got really interested in the idea of how you get different stakeholders to work together and an ethos of being in service for others. So that was sort of the nice setup, but how does that actually become your job? I would say my career was more of the jungle gym than the latter. I'm sure many in this profession who didn't grow up maybe studying sustainability, we all came to it in different ways. But for me, I went to law school, I went on to a big law firm, I worked on international mergers and acquisitions, and ended up going in-house to a client in fashion and apparel. And it was really the issues facing fashion and apparel around human rights, chemical management that drew me in through the legal side. And I realized this was maybe the job I always wanted but didn't know existed. So that was really my access point, was through apparel, where most of the supply chain is still heavily human. And there are just a myriad of challenges that do require working differently together.
That's great. And the theme for Climate Week NYC this year is We Can, We Will. What does that theme mean to you and to L'Oreal?
First of all, it's very active, so I like that idea. But we've always been aware of the urgent need to address challenges arising from the global environmental crisis, considering our worldwide business footprint being one of the, if not the largest, industry leader in beauty. L'Oreal's contribution can and will make significant change. So we believe we have a dual role to play. All of our sustainability strategy is set against two backdrops. One is around transforming ourselves and our ecosystem, and the other is around contributing to massive challenges in society. So when I think about we can, we will, how do we build resilience for people and planet through our different initiatives? We do have a fund for nature regeneration, a fund for women, and a fund for circular innovation. This is really putting dollars where we see importance and investing in innovations and communities where we believe will lead to a more sustainable business.
That's great. And then sort of one of our kind of key things we're thinking about this year is accountability. How are you holding yourselves accountable to the promises and the commitments that you've made? And how are others holding you accountable to those?
So with L'Oreal for the Future, we're in the midst of this major business transformation, right? And we're positioning L'Oreal to operate effectively within what we see as a very changing scenario for humanity. We have to operate within the boundaries of climate change, within the scientific boundaries, and under more constrained planetary boundaries across our entire business. So what does that mean from an accountability perspective? If we go back to our frame of transforming ourselves and our ecosystem, accountability comes in the form at the most basic level of measuring our own performance and incentives against L'Oreal for the Future. So part of our every bonus eligible employee's compensation package is tied to achieving certain sustainability goals each year. So I think that shows that we are making this part of the business imperative, and we see it as part of the business imperative. In terms of being held accountable by others, we now, I think you know, we work with many retailers, and those retailers have they have their own commitments. And I joke that we're at this point, we're now all each other's scope threes, whether we're suppliers or customers or whatever it is, we're all interlinked and our success is dependent upon each other. So now in our joint business plans, we have sustainability components, not only because we believe they will make for better, more efficient business, but also because we have dual goals that we're trying to meet together. So there's accountability in those joint business plans and accountability on the basis of our customer relationships. In terms of external stakeholders and reporting, I think you're aware that we are, I think it's now the 8th year AAA certified by CDP, so for forest, climate, and water, showing a long trajectory of reporting to CDP and also being held to very high standards in that regard. L'Oreal has received a number of awards, including Best Place to Work or Most Ethical Company. That's all wonderful to see, but the reason I bring it up is because when it comes to accountability, to get awards like that, you have to put a lot of information out there and be transparent about your path, your goals, where you are amongst them. So I think through our work internally, including performance incentives, our work with retailers and suppliers around our joint business plans, and then our work with reporting and transparency, I believe we're doing our part in trying to hold ourselves accountable.
Fantastic to hear about all of that and all the efforts at L'Oreal. And you're right, the theme is very active. But I've also been saying it's got we can, we will, but it's that we is also a kind of critical bit of it. Can you tell us a bit about what you're doing to collaborate with others to maximize your impact as you kind of go through these efforts to fight climate change?
Absolutely. Again, going back to that what grounds us, which is really our L'Oreal for the Future strategy. It's not just about transforming ourselves. It is about transforming or engaging and empowering our ecosystem. So I know L'Oreal fundamentally believes, but I fundamentally believe as well, that there is a role for business, there is a role for government, there is a role for an active and healthy NGO community. We need civil society to work together, we need the right policies, and we as companies need to hold ourselves accountable to very high standards. Unless we're all working together, this is not going to happen. And I think in some ways we're going to have to work together differently and build some new muscles going into this next stage of we will. In terms of how we work together, we have many partnerships. So you could say on the business side, what I mentioned before about having retailer partnerships and actually mapping our goals together and saying the only way we're going to hit them is if we do business differently. That could mean shipping differently. That could mean planning differently. That could mean merchandising differently. That could be accessing different material choices for things like in-store displays. But all that has to be joint agreed, and you need a very collaborative process. Obviously, our suppliers are a big part of our emissions footprint, so working with them to set their own science-based targets, helping to monitor and also contribute where we need to through long-term business relationships and investments so that they are lowering their carbon footprint. We have tangible examples of partnerships, for example, with the recycling partnership here in the US, working on small town access for recycling. We can make wonderful packaging that is fully recyclable, but if our system is not supporting that, or if our communities do not have access to recycling, then we end up in not the place we want to. So I think there are examples of how we work with our business partners, with our suppliers, with our nonprofit partners. Arbor Day Foundation is another one where we're working on restoring monarch butterfly habitats, really an effort to support pollinators and biodiversity. So there's so many ways I think that we're working together with different stakeholders, but the key is the ethos that we cannot do this alone.
That's great, and I like your phrase, we're all each other's scope 3. Marissa, it's been really great to speak with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, thank you for having me.
And if you'd like to learn more about L'Oreal and their sustainability efforts, join us at Climate Week NYC from September the 17th to 24th. ClimateWeekNYC.org has all the information that you need, and you can follow our socials to keep up with the latest news.